So that's one thing that worked well is again, building in public, showing people what you're doing, getting people excited about it, and having some way to keep in touch with them.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Founders in LA podcast. I'm your host Ethan Cole, and this is an opportunity to shine the spotlight through a product lens on some of the exceptional founders we have as the LA product community, an unedited one-take organic conversation. With us today is Joseph Jorgensen. Thanks for coming down to the studio, Joseph.
Thanks, Ethan. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. Excited to have you. But first, a word from our sponsors. Founders in LA is brought to you by Unita. Unita Club is a co-working space that sets itself apart. With locations in El Segundo, Manhattan Beach, and Hermosa, Unita is where creativity flourishes. Unlike traditional offices, they provide an inspiring environment where ideas can thrive and businesses can grow. With Unita, there's no hidden fees, flexible terms, options for dedicated offices, and unlimited access to conference rooms, a photo studio, this podcast studio, plus standard 3D printers, and 24/7 access at any of their locations. They're local champions who support neighborhood businesses, open their event spaces to nonprofits, and celebrate art, music, and culture. Join Unita Club and experience co-working like never before. Learn more at www.unita.club. We're also brought to you by the Product Managers Association Los Angeles, available at pma.la. They're the largest professional organization for product and designers in LA. With more than 4,000 members from over 500 companies, they host monthly meetups, organize a product leader council, and have a mentorship program where they connect working product managers with students from underrepresented groups to build a better and more diverse next gen. To learn more, go to pma.la. Our guest today is Joseph Jorgensen. He's the co-founder and CTO of Capsule. Joseph, can you just give us a 30-second description of Capsule?
Yeah, sure. So Capsule is we build AI-enabled video tools for content and marketing teams. So we offer a browser-based collaborative video editing tool for people who don't have video editing experience, but want to create professional looking on-brand video content in a scalable way.
And that kind of follows the trend of where we are right now in technology, the breaking down of barriers, the upskilling of everyone else, so that in the past where you need to hire maybe a video expert, maybe a designer to couple up with that video expert, and then someone who has just industry experience, knowing what are the different requirements across all the different social media platforms. You guys are living in a space where you're making it easier for people to do more with less.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. Our focus has been larger companies who already have a lot of content that they're making, a lot of video content, and they have different ways of doing it. And we're basically offering them another way to do it, something that scales better than traditional ways and sort of breaks down some of those barriers or some of the things that are kind of holding them back from creating even more video content.
So what are some examples of things that some people are able to do and are doing on Capsule right now?
Yeah, so we have already seen like a pretty broad range of use cases. Everything from what you would think of as traditional marketing content, like social marketing content. So things that a company would put out on their social channels, like on LinkedIn, or things like maybe announcing a new feature for a product, or other kind of short form branded video content. Whether it's on their sort of owned and operated channels, like putting it on their blog, or cross posting it to other platforms. And like you said, like sort of dealing with all the different platforms is a big part of that. And one of the things we focus on the product to streamline that process, so you can kind of make it once and then distribute it in many places. But we also see use cases in other places across the org. I mean, one pretty compelling use case for larger companies is just internal comms, and basically, creating video content for internal use and distributing amongst the team. So whether it's some message from leadership, from the CEO, or some kind of training content or other things like that, and we see the sort of employees within those companies responding well to that type of content.
Well, that's really interesting, and I feel like that fits along with a larger push of remote work. So historically in companies, could have an all hands meeting and you gather everyone in an auditorium if you're large, or around a specific floor if there's only one floor of the company. But now, even for internal communication, you almost have to have like like a high quality communications team that are ready to broadcast, right? Because the worst thing in the world is to have a poorly executed hometown, keynote talk by your CEO. Like all of a sudden you'd be like, okay, what's going on here? It's like, we can't even get this together. How are we all going to rally together? So the pressure's on these organizations to really up their game in ways that they probably weren't even thinking about a couple of years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I actually just last week I met someone who, I was telling him about this use case, and he said, yeah, like he told me he was like kind of had this long-term consulting arrangement with a company, and the CEO sent out this video to employees, and he said it was just like it really resonated with him, and he's more sort of like an engineering background, and he was just really impressed. Like it kind of like increased his opinion of the company, this one video, just by seeing this video that they produced it around the CEO.
That's fantastic. So you're living in the space where you're enabling folks to do more with the content across social media platforms, and you're building towards helping internal parts of the company better distribute their videos. What else are you looking at in terms of forward-thinking roadmap?
So one of the things that we roadmap-wise that we want to improve on is product demos. I know you come from sort of a product background, and that's something that we get a lot of requests about, and it has some unique challenges, and that is coming up pretty soon on our roadmap of how to like really seamlessly integrate screen recording with video recording and a voiceover, and there's tools out there that are really good at just that whether it's Loom, there's one called Screen Studio that we like, that are really work well for that. And currently, since we don't have all of those features built into our tool, we oftentimes recommend a workflow that involves recording part of the demo or the demo using one of those tools, and then bringing it into Capsule to do the sort of final edits to it to make it kind of like sort of production ready or ready to publish.
You know what I love about that is your ability to go cross-platform and thinking, it's built in your DNA to think about the cross-platform and how people are distributing their content across different social media platforms. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite strategies in products in general is when people meet folks where they are. And so I can definitely see advantages of having this product demo that doesn't just have to live on your website and hope someone finds it, that you can actually distribute it across these different channels and natively in those channels, so it feels like it's right for this channel. It's not like the subtitles aren't getting overwritten by like a comment section or something, right?
Definitely, yeah. So that's something we've already done a lot with. So a couple things. One is I really like the way you describe it, because it's similar to how we think about it, which is one term that we've been using for a long time is this idea of responsive video. So everyone's familiar at this point with responsive web design or a responsive website, right? That works really well on, looks good on any screen size. And so and there's actually, I can bring up a couple ways where we've sort of taken concepts or terms from other areas of design or digital media and brought it into video. So one of them is the responsive. So making responsive videos so that you can make your video and then you can basically select a different aspect ratio, and it will automatically any kind of motion graphics you added to it, whether it's captions or titles or other things, will automatically reflow or relay out and look good at any aspect ratio that you'll select. And then we took it a step further and addressed the other thing you mentioned, which is what we call safe zones. So basically you can take it, go one level deeper than just the aspect ratio. You can actually specify which platform you're planning to publish it to. And then we will move those visual elements around so that any kind of UI within the app will not conflict with that. So we have, over a dozen different platform targets that you can select, and that the safe zone will be accounted for, and we'll make sure that none of the graphics will conflict with the UI.
How did you find yourself in this space? Like, we had nothing like this growing up. At least, when I was growing up, we had, when I was growing up, Fox was new, right? So like we had 3 channels, and Fox coming on was the brand new, and there was cable. But this concept of, multi-platform didn't exist. It was all on the same screen. How did you find yourself in this world? Did you always think you'd get into this kind of, I don't know if you call it entertainment media, but how'd you find yourself here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like a roundabout long story, but, basically I've been working in sort of technology and digital media for my whole career, basically. And for a significant part of my career, I was working in like the digital agency space, building websites, mobile apps, different kinds of apps for different clients, a lot of big, well-known companies and brands, and a lot of media and publishing companies as well. And, so I kind of was very closely, involved, I guess, in the sort of evolution of digital media, basically. And so, from starting in like the early mid 2000s, having clients who, a lot of it had to do with like, the consumption of video content online. So some of the first TV networks that were bringing online viewing experiences as an alternative to watching it on the TV. I worked with clients like that, and we, in the early days, there was a lot of like Flash, and there was Microsoft Silverlight, things like that. Like those were the most capable video playing technologies online for a while. Everything from, I was really involved for a couple of times in like the NBC Olympics, sort of web platforms, which, involved a lot of video streaming and kind of this rich video on demand experience. And so, so I spent a lot of time working in the sort of digital, in the video, with video related products. And then kind of once I got into more of the startup world, and, was working on products, not really for other clients, but, more for my own team, my own company. I've been involved in a couple of different startups now that have been in this sort of like video or video related space. So one of them was like a consumer social app that had to do with like creating and sharing video content, essentially. And then there was one that was like an experiential marketing technology company where we were building products that helped at live events and experiences to capture and create branded video content. And that's when I got even deeper into like not just the video kind of viewing and consumption, but really into the technology around creating video content and how to do it like very efficiently and sort of automate different parts of it. So we were, working with a lot of great brands to create these brand activations where people could come to their events and capture this like branded video content at the event.
So you spent some time working with larger brands and some of the biggest, video events in the world. And at the time you were still thinking about, what does distribution look like? And it was more often, video via internet. So kind of alternative ways of distributing these videos. So that kind of led you to identifying, different ways that you can distribute video.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think just in terms of deeply understanding all of the, kind of constraints and, channels for distribution online. And I think that definitely helped, or like put me in a position, that helped with what I'm doing now. And but I think that sort of that last experience I had where that really got into sort of how is the content created, and how you can kind of streamline and automate that. I think that's the thing that most directly sort of influenced what I'm working on now, and and also made me realize and kind of work more closely with the people at these different companies who were responsible for sort of creating this content, and then what were they doing with the content after it got created, this short form branded video content.
So how did you find those first people to start paying you to do this?
Yeah, so that's that's always a really good question to ask. In our case, I think with Capsule, we did have a pretty unique origin story. So I'm not sure, it doesn't translate to everyone as a repeatable thing, but the way it went down for us is that company I mentioned, it's called Hypno. That was that experiential sort of event, creating content at events. So that company, we basically, in 2020, in March of 2020, live events and experiences kind of went on pause, and we were faced with this thing. We had this really great product, or suite of products, and a really great team, and but there was basically no business for us for some time. So that's when we put our heads together, and in some ways the origin story is a bit of a pivot. Ultimately, it's a spin out. I mean, we actually took that team and thought about, okay, we have this cool technology, we have this great team. What can we do? How can we continue this path in a world where people aren't going to these live events? And so that's when we had a couple of different sort of product ideas that we incubated within that environment, and launched like really quickly. So pretty much, within a few months, Capsule is one of those things. It was a pretty different, it looks pretty different than what we have now today. But we did build like this initial product. And that product was mostly about, one of the things we were trying to solve for people is the problem of actually getting the footage you need for video. And so the first product we launched at Capsule was for crowdsourcing video content. We made it really easy that you could just create a link that you could send to anyone or a group of people, and they click the link, they open it, and then they are prompted and guided through recording a video. And so, we launched that pretty quickly. And so the way we got our first customers, paying customers, is actually, through this network of like event marketers that we had at the previous business. And just like us, they were also scrambling for what was their job now, because they couldn't put on events, and how are they going to spend their budgets? And we basically were able to offer them a cool, unique way to engage with their customers or their whatever audience they had around video content, but online instead of in person. So that's basically how we got our first customers. And I could fast forward to this year where we actually launched our new flagship product, like what you think of Capsule today, which is this kind of more general purpose video editing tool. It's, in some ways it was a bit of a fresh start from a sort of positioning and marketing standpoint. So we definitely had some customers for our previous products who, we were able to onboard onto the new one, and essentially they're paying for the new product as well. But it was like a pretty full-on coordinated launch with like marketing and sales, and we did a lot of things, and we've, since September when we launched that, we've gotten, quite a few paying customers, brand new, that we didn't know before. Yeah.
What were just take a step back? It's interesting because there's a number of different ways that people are can get their first customers. And this is there's a bucket of people who fall into this where there's some sort of previous company or previous iteration of the current company, and they're able to leverage that network.
Yeah.
They have this industry knowledge or understanding a problem, and they already have kind of a built-in network that they can tap when they start something new. It's like, hey, we're doing this thing. Here's our solution to this problem we've been talking about, or this collective problem we have right now. There's no one's going to events. Like, we got to figure out, everyone's trying to figure out a way to do something. We got a product for you. I'd be curious to hear more about, in the new launch in September, what are the strategies that worked for you guys? What did you find? What was something you double down on versus, and something that you'd be like, oh, that was a terrible mistake. We'd never do that again.
Yeah. Let's see what worked. So a couple things that worked out really well. One is that we were definitely following the sort of like build in public mentality, where we were sharing teasers of things we were working on all throughout the process. And even like, I don't know, a year ago, like at the end of 2022, we put out a teaser video, but also a working, I don't know if we call it a prototype. Yeah, a prototype essentially of what we called Capsule AI Studio, which was a prototype that showed some of the ways that we were going to use AI to make video editing easier. And so we put that out at the end of last year, and that's actually when the process started. So almost a year before we launched the product. And so we just started building up a list of, a database of potential customers. And so we had various stages of like wait lists and things like that, where as we were sort of building in public, we would post some video of what we're doing, and there's always some way to get on the wait list for the new product. And so by the time we launched in September, we had tens of thousands of people on the wait list that we had built up over time. So that's one thing that worked well is again, building in public, showing people what you're doing, getting people excited about it, and having some way to keep in touch with them.
Did you find a lot of success in converting those early alpha and beta testers into paying customers?
Yeah. Yes. Let's just say, at least getting them, we had very good success in terms of getting them to sign up for the new product. We have like a free tier on the new product.
Right.
We put a lot of effort into segmenting that wait list in terms of, doing our best to kind of understand who on that wait list is actually a target customer. And out of tens of thousands of waitlist signups, probably, only a few thousand people, would sort of fall within our ICP. And so, yes. And of those, we have definitely converted a few. One strategy we use around that is, in addition to doing this wait list over time, we also had a pretty robust private beta program where for about 2 to 3 months, about 3 months prior to the launch, we onboarded a bunch of people who we would consider our target customers. So some of those, quite a few of them, we picked off of the wait list. Some of them were also just through our networks or even past customers. So we had hundreds of users in our private beta who we onboarded at different times, but some of them quite early, when the product was, barely functioning, right? It's and so it was a great experience. I think that was another strategy that I would say was good, is onboarding these people into the private beta. So they got to, in some ways, they got to feel special because they were these early adopters. They were on the forefront of what could be something really useful to their organization. And so that was a good experience. We also had a private Slack group with all of them. And that was really interesting, almost like building this community of our private beta users and engaging with them, letting them know when we were making updates and, try out new things and letting them, give feedback in the channel if they wanted. So that worked well. And so, our goal was to convert some of those. And we actually did successfully close a couple of like enterprise license agreements even before the launch. So before we did this like public September launch, we actually had like a few paying customers.
And you're saying there's only a few thousand, but when you're talking about B2B SaaS or some enterprise, you only need like a couple of those a year to make it a good year. So yeah, I don't feel like, don't have to understate. Like we only got a couple customers, but if the customers are decent size, and that's a different maker. Really interesting. So then what you're saying is that, building in public allowed you to generate excitement and having these like kind of mini demos, even though you're not really ready, and not overstating, like not creating smoke and mirrors, like, hey guys, here's what we're building right now. You're able to create these wait lists and almost a community. And what it also sounds like is you're building internal champions among maybe some of your potential preferred customers all along. And it sounds like, that's a brilliant way to get those, because immediately once you do launch it, that's when you want to have these internal champions, especially a lot of B2B SaaS, there's long sales cycles. So if you can start getting ahead of that pre-launch, you get them excited, and then along that line, building an internal champion, if you bring them into the process, it's still being made, then they have like a personal investment in, I helped build this product. They're probably more likely to shout from the rooftops when it works.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think, I guess maybe switching over to something that didn't work as well, I guess, one thing that has been a little bit of a challenge. Well, I'll say one more thing about leading up to the launch is in addition to having this private beta, we were also warming up our kind of sales and marketing process, let's say, prior to the launch, which was cool. So like basically going through the sales process with some of these enterprise private beta customers to sort of test out different things, like even different price points and, to get a sense of like what it would take to get these deals across the line. So that was great. So by the time we launched, we were pretty much ready to go with that. And then same with different kind of marketing tactics too, like testing out some different messaging, even testing out some different outbound strategies. So even before the product was publicly available, we did test out different outbound strategies leading up to the launch. So we really had, like I said, this kind of coordinated effort where we were, sort of the whole team was gearing up for the launch. The one thing I think that's been a challenge though is now sort of post-launch, now that we're public, is how best to harness that community aspect. And, our Slack, like the Slack channel we built, made a lot of sense during the private beta, where that was like the only place you could find out about product updates and things like that. So we would always, announce like, oh, hey, we just released these features, or like, we were obviously releasing a lot because we're building the product out. So I think post-launch, we're still trying to figure out exactly how best to engage with, like, to create this community of users. And I mean, one thing we have done, we did like one sort of like launch webinar thing where we invited like a lot of people from our waitlist or whatever, where we kind of presented the product and walked through some demos, and then also like took questions, Q&A. That was cool. And then now we're doing like weekly office hours, like over Zoom, where people can hop on and, sometimes we talk about some new features, but a lot of it's just Q&A. So that's what we're doing. But I think we need to figure out something better than the Slack channel, or some better way to engage with this community beyond the office hours.
That's great. I mean, even just having those office hours is huge, because it's also seen from some B2B sales in some companies where they just host like a webinar just showing how it works. But you guys are going one step further, like, hey, we'll show you how it works, but we'll also take your feedback. I imagine that's going to do you guys well in the long run, especially. Well, trying to kind of base this back in LA, You know, I think of the LA community. Love to hear more about what's your most LA thing. So this could be tech related. It doesn't have to be, but you know, given your time here in LA,
Right.
like what was it?
My most LA experience. Yeah. Yeah. So one thing that jumps into my mind is actually, it's before I moved to LA. Actually, it's like I was visiting once. This was quite a few years ago. I've been in LA for about 6 years. I was visiting once, and a friend of mine was also in town, and she was staying with her uncle in Malibu, and like right on the beach, and she was like, come over, you know, it's like cool place right on the beach. So I went over there, and it turned out that her uncle was a private investigator to like celebrities turned like Hollywood consultant, like consulting on, you know, whatever roles that involved like private investigators or things like that. And I just, a number of times since then, I've thought about like, that was like the most LA, one of the, you know, I've had quite a few of these sort of LA experiences, but that was like true. And he was like, I don't know, this very charismatic guy. And I'm surprised he also wasn't an actor, but he was a consultant to Hollywood, but he had some cool stories about both his days as an investigator, but also working on films.
Oh, it's amazing. Almost like the Kevin Spacey character in LA Confidential, who's like, he was a former cop and became consultant for some TV show.
Totally. Yeah.
And you're just hanging out with your friend. You happen to end up in Malibu at this house with this really interesting character.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, thanks again for coming down and sharing with us some more about Capsule. And Joseph, tell folks more about where they can find Capsule, learn more about it.
Yeah, sure. So let's see, capsule.video. That's our website. That's sort of the main place to find us, but we're also really active on X. Made with Capsule is our handle there, and LinkedIn. You know, you can find me on LinkedIn, or we also put a lot out on there.
Awesome. Well, we've been speaking with Joseph Jorgensen. He's the co-founder and CTO of Capsule. I'd like to thank you again for coming down to the studio. This was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks again to our sponsors, PMALA and Unida. I'd like to thank you all for listening to us. And if you like what you hear, please smash that subscribe button. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Founders in LA.